Hey everybody, good morning. Hope you're all doing well and have had a nice 2018 so far. I haven't done a vlog in a while, but today I'm going to be running down a list, and these all in my opinions, of games I have played or I have heard a lot about. Now, this is a top 12 game series that I rank 1 to 13 in my honest opinion of games. I've liked every entry. All right, let's get started. Number 1 on my list is Devil May Cry. Originally developed by Capcom, and the new release was by Ninja Theory, partnered with Capcom. But the original trilogy plus Devil May Cry 4 were some of the were hands down my favorite series I have ever played. And I have Devil May Cry 4 on the channel. I did a full gameplay of the special edition that came out on the PS4. And it's hands down my favorite game I have ever played. But I hear that the Devil May Cry collection is being remastered on PS4 this March. So be on the lookout for that. It will be on Xbox One, I think some point around that time as well. So for the Xbox players, you can pick it up as well. I highly recommend it if you have not played or have been a fan of the series. Number 2, Naughty Dog's Uncharted series. Now this one is lasted 10 years. It was about a treasure hunter, Nathan Drake, and his associates. It almost copied the Tomb Raider series, but both of them go hand in hand, and they were really well done. Naughty Dog does a good job of captivating us in a story-based first-person shooter. Well, not first-person shooter, action-adventure, with some collectibles to pick up that stem from little Easter eggs of other Naughty Dog games. In the recent entries, I should say, Uncharted 4: Thief's End and Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, there are Easter eggs stemming from Crash Bandicoot. There are Easter eggs stretching all across the Uncharted universe, and little treasures to pick up that give you history on the lands you explore in the game. Now, number 3 on this list is everyone's probably starting game, the Mario franchise. The first game I ever picked up on Mario was Super Mario Brothers on the NES or SNES. There's been so many games over the span of 30 years. But the first game I actually enjoyed of Mario was Super Mario Bros. 3 and also Super Mario 64. Later entries like Super Mario Odyssey and Super Mario Galaxy, those were awesome games. Nintendo once again hit a home run and keeps Mario interesting for newer fans to this series and returning fans. Number 4, The Legend of Zelda series. Now, the first time I ever played a Legend of Zelda, it was when I still had the 64, and I played Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time is hands down my favorite Zelda game. And the close second to Ocarina of Time is Twilight Princess at the end of the lifespan of the Nintendo GameCube and the start of the Wii. Both of them were ones you travel pretty much through different time frames, and of course you got the Master Sword and everything else, and that's just an awesome series. And Breath of the Wild, hands down one of the top 10 best games of this past year. I did not play it personally, but because I don't have a Nintendo Switch, but I saw a bunch of gameplays on it, a bunch of reviews. Breath of the Wild is a reinvention to the Zelda series franchise and a new spin on a classic. Number 5. This one's developed by EA. It's Dead Space. It's about a guy stranded in space, and his only means of unlocking the clues is going around killing all these creatures that wiped out entire space crews. Now the first entry in the series, the beginning, the whole thing peaked on the horror factor, on the suspense factor. That was absolutely amazing game. The sequel, Dead Space 2, nailed it right in the park, nailed it right out of the park again. But it upped the ante of suspense and horror in a shooter. And then Dead Space 3 was a good ending to the series, but Dead Space in a way set the blueprint for games like Prey and other games that followed, where you're up in space and you have to deal with all the creatures that shapeshift and come at you, and they're all disfigured and everything like that. That's a good reason to pick up that game. And also, I think it also set the blueprint for the Metro series, which I'll get to later in this list. Number 6. Ooh, this one's by Santa Monica. Our favorite, I should say, anti-hero, Kratos from God of War. And the first 2 God of Wars were classics. They are classics to this day for a reason. They are awesome action adventure hack and slash games through the Greek mythology. God of War 3 shows our favorite angry Spartan taking on all the gods and finally killing Zeus. And then the spin-offs, when we got to the PSP, Chains of Olympus and Ghosts of Sparta, those ones went a little bit backwards to show more of the origin of how Kratos came to dislike the gods a bit more in detail than the trilogy. And then when Ascension came out, people didn't like it too much. It didn't sell very well. It was good. I played it and I enjoyed it. It was a good tale to where Kratos' story ended as far as the Greek mythology goes. But one game I'm anticipating for 2018 is the remake of God of War. This time, Kratos will be with a little boy, and they'll be traveling in the Norse mythology, which is a new take on God of War, and it'll bring new fans and a bunch of new legends and folklore within the Norse mythology and folklore around the Viking ages and all that. So I'm highly looking forward to that game. Number 7 was released a little over 20 years ago. Resident Evil. Now, a lot of these games have been hit or miss. I know we've gotten a lot of remakes, a lot of sequels, a lot of entries in the list. Resident Evil 1 has been remastered and is still one of the top games to pick up. Resident Evil 2 introduced us to Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield. And I know, myself included, a lot of us have been asking for a remake of Resident Evil 2. And hopefully the developers at Capcom will hear us and think it's a good idea to re-release Resident Evil 2. And then Resident Evil 3 was a good one. And then we got to Resident Evil 4, which was a game changer for the series, and it introduced more action but still kept the survival horror, especially in this entry where it was Leon Kennedy and then he had to do an escort mission to get the president's daughter from these cultists, and you just get to go to a castle and an island and a fortress and all that good stuff. Explosions, helicopters, of course the mutants from Resident Evil that they love to introduce us to. Resident Evil 5 was more, I'd say, not as successful as 4, but it was still damn fun. It brought upon the co-op aspect where you could play 2 players, you could go online, you could do survival with a few of your friends, and of course they would end up hating you, like in Mario Kart where somebody's got that blue shell, you know? Right as you're about to cross the finish line, you get hit with it, and then you fall back a couple spaces. But let's get back on track. Resident Evil 6, though it had its moments, it fell flat, in my opinion. A lot of fans were not anticipating a new one and thought Resident Evil ran its course. But it all changed when Resident Evil 7 came out last year. Last year. And Resident Evil 7 brought a new first-person aspect to the series, and a lot of fans were skeptical about it, myself included. But the minute you start playing that game, you get introduced to the Baker family, which was almost like a Texas Chainsaw kind of atmosphere, because the family is like eating these intestines and grotesque things, and they're like all mutated. Because you see how they were before this little girl was introduced to them, and it turned them all crazy and like deformed and grotesque looking. But it brought upon many great new survival horror aspects. Of course, the enemies were bullet sponges, but you get a lot of that in Call of Duty and other games these days. But with Resident Evil 7, it was a standalone title that was a breath of fresh air to one of the longest ongoing series of video games. Now number 8 is the Metro series. where it's a bunch of tunnels and you go up to the surface where you have to deal with radiation and flying creatures and like wolf type creatures. You pretty much deal with the elements as well as the underground Russian subway tunnels, and you deal with the dark ones and the light ones. But Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light were based off books 2033 and 2034. And the games were fun from start to finish. They gave a bunch of challenges, all these weapons you get to use, like air guns, revolvers, LMGs, rocket launchers, grenades, flamethrowers, Molotovs, all that good stuff. And then another entry to the series I'm looking forward to comes out, I believe, this year, and it's Metro Exodus, which I haven't seen much except for the reveal trailer, and I can tell it's going to be another great one in the trilogy. Now, number 9 is BioShock, developed by 2K Studios, where you're a guy who is shipwrecked and you end up in this underwater metropolis of Rapture with this guy who built it himself. But then you deal with these little girls that have been corrupted by the craziness that goes on in this underwater city, and you have to save them or you kill them. It alters in the story. It alters as you play, because if you save them, you get less stuff to upgrade your abilities, where you get to shoot like shock out in your hands. You get to shoot fire. Or if you kill them, you get more to upgrade yourself, like your weapons and your abilities, as I've mentioned. But BioShock 1 and 2 were good, because BioShock 2 you get to be the big daddy, and you get to pretty much be a main villain that you were freaked out of in the first one. But you become a big brother to all these little sisters, and they grow up and they become almost like your daughters. And then BioShock Infinite was where you're in British Columbia area, and you got Elizabeth with you, and you still do the same, and you use all these abilities, and you use all this weaponry, shotguns, bunch of steampunk type weapons. But with the HD collection of it, you get to relive all the fun you had in Rapture. Now, number 10 is one of the games I started out playing after Mario and Zelda. It was Crash Bandicoot, developed originally by Naughty Dog Studio. And Crash is a marsupial, and he's genetically mutated by his arch rival Dr. Cortex. And he gets his ability to spin, to jump, to belly flop as he goes across all these worlds, and he gets a ride on a hog. He gets to climb up these, at times, frustrating platform sections of the game. And then there was this level where you're across the sky bridge, and these platforms break if you're not quick enough to dodge the turtles, dodge the hog coming at you. Bunch of craziness, but every time Dr. Cortex tries a new plan, even tries manipulating Crash to assist him in Cortex Strikes Back, Crash finds a way with his trusted buddy Aku Aku, the mask with all the one-liners. That was like comic relief in the game, and Dr. Cortex just completely fails, time and time again. So I was very happy that they remastered Crash Bandicoot this past year, because it was nice to relive the nostalgia of playing as our favorite Bandicoot. Number 11 is a game I heard is getting remastered on the PS4 either this year or the next, and it's Medieval, where we see our friend Sir Daniel Fortescue, the hero Gallimier, who got killed by the first stray arrow in battle against this wizard Zarok, who was casting all these spells to bring souls from the dead up to attack the townsfolk, but with Sir Dan failing to thwart Zarok's plans when he was alive, but he was dubbed a hero Gallimier for leading the fight against Zarok. Zarok cast a spell almost a century later and brought Sir Dan back to life, though at this point he was a skeleton with his eye missing and his lower jaw missing. And he had this quirky little earworm in his skull that would talk to him, and he would have to pick up souls in a chalice on each level he goes to get the Zarok. And once the souls were collected, he would go to the Hall of Heroes, where all these esteemed heroes of Gallimier are forever enshrined as statues. But every time you collected a chalice, they would see that Sir Dan is a hero and give him their weapon that they used in battle when they were alive. And then Medieval 2 was the same. Zarok once again resurrected after Sir Dan beat him in the first game. And it was just a fun little adventure, fun little gothic hack and slash action game where he was one of the mascots in the early days of PlayStation. And I hope that the rumors are true and they do bring Medieval back on the PS4, because it would be nice to walk around as our favorite skeletal hero. Well, our skeletal hero with one eye and only an upper jaw. But it was still one of my favorite games that I played when I was a kid. When I was, say, 7 or 8, I first came across this game, and I absolutely fell in love with every part of it. Number 12 is another long ongoing series that just keeps getting better and better as each entry comes in, and that's Final Fantasy. Now, I haven't played all. Let's say it's on 15. It just came out with 15. I haven't played all 15 entries of the Final Fantasy series. My favorite, hands down, is Final Fantasy VII. where we got introduced to Cloud Strife. And then my second favorite is Final Fantasy X, where we learned of the prophet, and then we were learning Blitzball and dealing with all that. And then Final Fantasy 13, where it was lightning and snow and a bunch of other people that would come in. And both games of Final Fantasy 13 were awesome, but they weren't the caliber of Final Fantasy 7, but they were still good in their own right. But the recent entry, Final Fantasy 15, where we were seeing the royal Prince Noctis and his friends on an adventure to find who killed the king of the crown, leading up to Noctis's rightful place as king. That was fun. It was a new open world where you basically get to walk around freely, and you get to do these battles where you get to throw your sword and you get to warp to one spot and strike a weapon on the enemy, and introduce more skills, more developing more characters. And one thing Final Fantasy continues to do amazingly, and I mean amazingly, is their cinematics and their stories. In every entry, their stories are the most memorable of that series. And finally, on this top list, again, let me remind you guys that these are games I have played, and these are, in my honest opinion, games that are good series that I will continue to look back on and be like, man, I wish these games were still out. I would play these games nonstop. Now, the final entry on my list is everyone's favorite hero that didn't speak till almost the second or third entry, and that's the Halo franchise by Bungie, where it's our good old friend Master Chief going over the galaxies and having his this hologramic partner Cortana assist him as he ends the war on the substations he ventures to as he goes across space and galaxies, different worlds. But Halo, I hear, is in development for the 6th entry in the list in the series, but they might hold it off. But I hope for fans of Xbox that they will come out with a new adventure for Master Chief. But the question is, what's next? What's next for Master Chief? We've seen him coming up. We've seen him earning his rank as Master Chief, to seeing him lose Cortana and lose a lot over his adventures. So, will we see what's next for him? Only time will tell on that, my friends. But no, I wanted to share with the new year. I wanted to share this list with you guys and pretty much let you guys know what games I will be featuring on this channel, or what games I play in my spare time that I will try and upload. And if you guys know of games I missed, or you think rank higher, please let me know in the comments, and we'll compare, and we'll talk about what we like about our games of choice, what we don't like, or suggestions of what you guys want to see. But for now, I'll see you guys later. Take care, guys.